Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English Spark, your cozy NHA for mastering English listening and speaking skills. In this series, we'll glide through a fresh 10-chapter story, full of rain-washed streets, riverside cafes, and unlikely friendships, using each short scene to sharpen real-world pronunciation, rhythm, and everyday conversation. So settle in at your learning NHA, tune your ears, loosen your tongue, and let's light up your English journey, chapter by chapter, right here on Easy English Spark. Chapter 1. A Sudden Downpour. I can hear the storm before I see it. A single deep peal of thunder rolls across the rooftops like an enormous drum being struck somewhere beyond the horizon. Its low vibration lingers in the humid air, as though the clouds themselves are clearing their throats to speak. I pause on the narrow cobblestone pavement of Windsor Street, lift my face, and taste the faint metallic tang of rain that has not yet fallen. The street lamp above me flickers, its amber glow diffused by mist, casting a trembling halo on the slick stones at my feet. I have been waiting here for the better part of 15 minutes, clutching a folded bus schedule that is already smudged from my damp fingers. The schedule promises that the number 7 bus should arrive every 10 minutes. Yet the road before me remains stubbornly empty, save for one silver sedan gliding past on whispered tires. Around me, the other commuters have disappeared. Some retreated into shop doorways, others surrendered and trudged off in search of a taxi, leaving me in a pocket of uneasy stillness. Another growl of thunder ripples through the sky. This time it is closer, richer, like the clearing of a vast cavernous throat. I draw my coat tighter, but warmth eludes me. The air is thick and soupy, heavy with the promise of a drenching. In the hush that follows, a single raindrop lands on the back of my hand, cold, deliberate, startling as a tap from an unseen finger. Then a second, a third. There is no gentle build-up. The heavens simply let go. Rain descends in a sudden, rippling curtain, hard and angry, turning the street into a shimmer of silver lines. The first impact feels like stones flung from invisible slingshots, sharp, icy, relentless. I gasp and instinctively raise the collar of my coat. Water snakes down my neck. My hair, only moments ago loose and orderly, plasters itself against my cheeks, dripping into my eyes. In the span of a breath, Windsor Street transforms. Gutters overflow at once, sending swirling eddies of leaves and cigarette butts racing toward the drains. Shop signs blink under the assault, their neon letters buzzing. The stone facade of the old cinema across the road darkens shade by shade, as if someone is lowering an invisible dimmer switch. All the ambient noises, engines, footsteps, distant conversation, fade beneath the hammering drumbeat on pavement and windows. I know I have mere seconds before I am soaked clean through. My gaze darts left, right, desperate for shelter, until it lands on a modest red brick building not 5 strides away. Aldridge's Books and Curiosities. A soft, buttery glow spills past its frosted glass door. Without a second thought, I make a dash for it, splashing through shallow puddles, the soles of my shoes slapping an urgent staccato against the stone. I wrench open the door, a silver bell, overhead jingling an alarm, and stumble into a pocket of quiet warmth. The shift in atmosphere is almost dreamlike. Outside, the downpour roars like an unbridled waterfall. Inside, a hush of paper, wood polish, and faintly sweet coffee embraces me. The lighting is mellow gold, emanating from shaded lamps perched atop crooked bookcases. My pulse is hammering, my breath ragged, but I am safe. Droplets tumble from the hem of my coat, creating a small constellation on the worn oak floorboards. I peel damp strands of hair from my forehead and push them behind my ears. For a few moments, I simply stand there, listening to the rain pound the tiled roof overhead, a rhythmic percussion that seems to vibrate through the rafters and into my bones, while my heartbeat gradually slows. Beyond the threshold stretches a labyrinth of narrow aisles, each flanked by tall shelves that bow slightly under the weight of their contents. Dust motes drift lazily in the lamplight, and somewhere deeper inside, a grandfather clock counts the seconds with deliberate authority. Tick. Tock, tick. The uncanny peace makes the ferocity of the storm feel distant, unreal, as though I have slipped from one world into another. My eyes settle on a small display just to the right of the counter, a wooden umbrella stand filled with splashes of color. Crimson, sunflower yellow, emerald, amethyst. They look almost like an artist's bouquet captured in fabric. A sign reads, "New, weatherproof elegance." Despite myself, I let out a soft laugh. The timing could not have been more perfect. One umbrella in particular draws me closer. Its canopy is a rich, deep cobalt, as vivid as a summer midnight sky. I reach out reverently, letting my fingertips skim the material. It is silky yet forthright, promising resilience. I test the weight of the handle, light but reassuring, crafted from polished ash wood that fits the curve of my palm as though carved to measure. I angle the umbrella beneath the lamplight, admiring the neat spokes that gleam like slender silver. Ribs. In that instant, the storm outside feels almost irrelevant. I have found my armor. A gentle voice interrupts my reverie. Caught in it, did you? I turn to find an elderly man leaning behind the counter, spectacles resting halfway down. His nose, eyes crinkled with kind amusement. Wisps of silver hair frame his thoughtful face. He holds a linen cloth in one hand, evidently having paused mid-polish of an antique vase. I was no match for it, I admit, still catching my breath. How much for this one? I lift the cobalt umbrella slightly. He tilts his head, considering. Normally 8 pounds, but given the circumstances, his eyes flick to the sheets of water racing down the shop front window. I'd hate to see you swim home. I can make it 6. Gratitude floods me. I fumble in my coat pocket for coins. The metal cool and slick. Deal, I say, sliding them into his weathered palm. He beams, wraps the umbrella in a thin paper sleeve bearing the shop's embossed logo, and hands it over as if transferring something precious. Transaction concluded, I linger for a heartbeat, reluctant to leave the calm sanctuary of books and softly ticking clocks. Yet the bus is surely still due, and my errands cannot wait forever. I draw a fortifying breath, step back toward the entrance, and brace myself. The bell tinkles again as I push into the storm. The rain greets me unabated, but this time I am ready. With a satisfying whoosh, I unfurl the cobalt canopy. For a split second, the downpour drums angrily upon it, then disperses, sliding down the curved surface in shimmering torrents. Beneath its shelter, the world feels smaller, crisper, defined by the drumbeat of rain mere inches above my head. I set off along Windsor Street, my reflection trailing in twin ribbons across puddles. Street lamps bloom into amber halos upon the wet pavement, and the umbrella's vivid blue seems to glow against the monochrome palette of storm-washed stone. Each step rings with confidence now, the earlier chaos replaced by a quiet thrill of victory, proof that a tiny bit of preparedness can outwit even the angriest sky. Somewhere ahead, the number 7 bus will lumber into view, and beyond that lies the rest of my day's adventure. But for this fleeting moment, I walk alone beneath my cobalt shield, listening to the symphony of water around me, feeling oddly triumphant. This, I think, tightening my grip on the sturdy ashwood handle, is indeed fortunate rain gear, perhaps the luckiest purchase I will make all week. Chapter 2. The Azure Find. I step away from Aldridge's books and curiosities as though emerging from a sanctuary into a half-dream. The storm has eased into a steady, silvery drizzle, but the rain still sings on rooftops and coils off the eaves in shimmering threads. In my right hand, I carry the new umbrella, my dazzling Azure companion, and for a moment I merely stand there, admiring the way its deep blue canopy seems to drink in every passing street lamp and give the light back brighter than before. I press the release button once more, just to watch it bloom. It opens with a soft, confident whump, ribs snapping into place like a well-drilled regiment. Under its span, the world becomes a private room, boundaries drawn by water and indigo cloth. Raindrops thrum overhead, muted now, as though they are being coached to whisper. I tilt the umbrella, catch my face in a passing shop window, and almost laugh. In the glass, I see a traveler newly armed, no longer the bedraggled soul who sprinted through the deluge only minutes earlier, but someone poised, somehow taller, buoyed by an unexpected stroke of luck. The bus, a lumbering blue and cream relic, finally rounds the corner with a hiss of wet brakes. Yet when it sighs to a stop, I do not climb aboard. I have business further down Windsor Street, and the air feels fresher for walking. Besides, I want to test my umbrella properly, to let the drizzle bead and roll off its surface while I explore its every angle. So I wave the driver on and set out at an unhurried pace, shoes splashing through shallow, mirror-smooth puddles that reflect the world like quicksilver. With each step, the umbrella becomes a living jewel above me, a fragment of summer night transplanted into this gray afternoon. The cloth is so richly dyed that even dull daylight cannot flatten it. It gleams like polished lapis, each droplet forming a perfect crystal before sliding away. Strangers bustle past, heads ducked, newspapers held overhead, but I navigate the rivering pavement in tranquil comfort, feeling an almost theatrical pleasure at remaining dry while others scurry. A few blocks south, the air shifts, warm, sugary, inviting. The Marquis of Pemberton's patisserie glows in pink and cream neon, its windows misted by ovens working overtime. Beneath that glow stands my younger sister Claire, wrapped in a wool coat 2 sizes too large, laughing as she tries to balance twin paper cups of hot chocolate. She sees me and breaks into a grin. "I thought you'd drowned," she teases, blowing steam from her drink. "Saved by cobalt blue ingenuity," I reply, twirling the umbrella with a little flourish. She lifts her cup in salute. Inside the patisserie, the scent is intoxicating. Caramelized sugar, roasted almonds, a hint of orange zest. My errands here are simple: collect a box of midnight glaze eclairs I pre-ordered for Claire's study group, and pick out something indulgent for myself. The shop's interior is a warm cocoon of pastel walls, marble counters, and faint French jazz. Frosted glass cabinets display rows of pastries so immaculate they resemble jeweled artifacts more than food. Rose petal macarons, pistachio palmiers, lemon lavender tarts whose glossy surfaces reflect the pendant lights overhead. But first, a small matter of etiquette. Umbrellas have no place amid spun sugar and shoe. Just outside the entrance, an iron umbrella rack stands, its spokes dripping quietly. 3 umbrellas already occupy it. A tartan collapsible, an oversized golf model in black, and a curious elderly specimen of forest green fabric etched with delicate silver vines. I pause, give my blue guardian a fond pat on the handle, and slot it neatly between the others. Tiny rivulets snake down its canopy and bead on the tiled floor like molten glass. Crossing the threshold feels like changing seasons. The patisserie is warm, perfumed, and softly amber. My shoulders unclench. I wipe residual drizzle from my forehead with the back of my sleeve, and only then do I notice how silent my umbrella has made the rain. In here, I recall it as no more than distant applause. Claire is already at the counter, negotiating ribbon. Colors with the assistant. Cinnamon or sky blue? I linger behind, studying the eclairs gleaming under curved panes of glass. Each one is a miniature night sky, sheened with dark chocolate so lustrous that it mirrors the cafe's hanging Edison bulbs. When the assistant returns with a sample box, the pastries make the faintest metallic clink against the tray, like coins in a fountain. I feel a sting of anticipation. The next day, when Claire's friends bite into these eclairs, the hidden core of cassis cream will surely warrant applause of its own. While the ribbons are tied and bows fussed over, I drift toward a side display of viennoiseries still cooling on wire racks. The steam rising off them clouds my glasses, and I remove them for a moment, blinking at the golden lattice of croissants resting like small sleeping foxes. I choose 2. 1 chocolate, 1 almond, each placed into a waxed sleeve that crackles in my hand. Behind me, the grandfather clock from the bookshop seems to have followed. A similar antique here tolls 3 times, the notes soft but insistent. I glance at my watch. 3:15 already. A whisper of urgency threads its way through my contentment. There are still lectures to review tonight, slides to polish. Yet I cannot leave without one last look around, soaking in the warmth before meeting the damp air again. Finally, ribbons secured and payment settled, I tuck the eclair box beneath my arm and head for the door. The assistant calls after me, "Mind the puddles," in a sing-song lilt. Claire trails behind, carefully guarding the twin cups of hot chocolate, already cooling but no less aromatic. As I reach the threshold, I steel myself for the chill. Outside, the drizzle has thickened once more, and the street is awash in blurred reflections. Headlights, neon, passing shoes. I reach instinctively for my umbrella in the rack and pause, fingers halfway closed around, a handle that isn't mine. Polished wood, yes, but warmer in tone, and the fabric above it is a deep forest green feathered with vines of silver. My heartbeat skips. For a moment I simply stare at the imposter, mystified, my reflection caught in a droplet on the canopy's edge. Somewhere nearby, car horns murmur, tires hiss through water, and distant thunder growls anew. A flicker of confusion and a hint of foreboding seizes me, but confusion blossoms into certainty. My cobalt umbrella is gone. That realization, as crisp as frost, hangs in the drizzle-thick air. My dazzling fragment of midnight blue summer has vanished, replaced by this silent stranger of ivy green and silver. I tighten my grip around the eclair box, the warmth of pastries bleeding through like heartbeats, and feel a curious mixture of annoyance, disbelief, and intrigue welling in my chest. Somewhere in the rainy maze of Windsor Street, the blue umbrella, and the person who now carries it, await discovery. Thus ends the chapter of the find, though perhaps find is too generous a word. In the span of a single pastry purchase, I have traded cobalt for conundrum. Ahead lies the hunt, the explanation, and if fortune is willing, the safe return of my Azure guardian. Chapter 3: Sweets and Snafus. For a heartbeat, I stare at the vine-green stranger in my grasp, mind whirring, raindrops ticking on the patisserie's striped awning like a metronome gone mad. The umbrella's fabric is handsome in its own antique way, forest shades laced with silver filigree. But it is not mine. Not the cobalt banner that only minutes ago felt like a personal miracle. I blink once, twice, hoping my eyes have simply misread the dim light. They have not. Claire notices. First the blankness on my face, then the alien umbrella in my hand. "Is that new?" she asks, tone perched somewhere between curiosity and concern. Steam from her hot chocolate halos her freckles like faint fog. "No," I answer, voice low, puzzled. "It's someone's, just not mine." I shove the Downpour vine umbrella back into the rack and rifle anxiously through the slots. But the tartan collapsible is still there. The black golf giant is still there. And beside them sits only this botanical impostor. The cobalt guardian is gone as cleanly as if it never existed. My first instinct is denial. Perhaps I misremembered where I left it. Maybe inside, near the counter. But a quick, frantic sweep of the patisserie interior reveals nothing blue. Nothing even remotely umbrella-shaped. Only the soft glow of sconces reflecting off marble and glass. The assistant behind the till tilts her head as I pace along the pastry case, clutching eclairs in one arm and doubt in the other. "Lose something, love?" she calls, cheerful yet sympathetic. "Mislaid, I hope," I reply, forcing a smile. "Blue umbrella, bright as the Aegean Sea." She shakes her head regretfully. "Not seen it come back in. We'd have noticed. Sounds too pretty to miss." Claire places the hot chocolates on a tiny foyer table and slips into detective mode with alarming speed. She checks under chairs, peers behind decorative planters, even lifts the corner of a welcome mat that could not possibly conceal a full-sized umbrella. All the while, the drizzle outside fattens to true rainfall again, each droplet exploding on the pavement like tiny crystal grenades. After 10 fruitless minutes, the patisserie door jingles, and a delivery cyclist enters, shaking water from neon sleeves. His entrance unleashes a gust of wet wind that rattles pastry boxes and sends croissant flakes skittering across glass shelves. Claire and I exchange a look. If the umbrella thief or borrower slipped out earlier, they will be long gone by now, swallowed by the rain-washed labyrinth of Windsor Street. An absurd cocktail of emotions floods me. Irritation. Who swaps umbrellas? Without checking? Guilt. Did I place it carelessly? And, to my surprise, a twinge of excitement. Lost objects have a way of leading to peculiar adventures. Every children's book I ever loved begins with a mix-up just like this. But before adventure, there is practical necessity. My errands and Claire's schedule cannot pause indefinitely for a treasure hunt. We reach an unspoken truce. Retrieve my umbrella if we can, but first secure our pastries and hot drinks in a cab, away from the gathering cloudburst. I step back outside with the vine umbrella, partly for shelter, partly because abandoning it feels wrong. Somebody will need it returned. The second I open it, the canopy unfurls in dignified silence, silver vines gleaming. It is lighter than I expected, and the grip bears faint initials burned into the wood. M.R. Curious. Clues already. Claire whistles as I spin the umbrella, studying its craftsmanship. At least you've traded up in mystery, she quips. Traffic has thickened despite the weather. Headlights smeared across the slick asphalt into molten ribbons. We wade to the curb, arm in arm, pastry box guarded like crown jewels under Claire's coat. I attempt to hail a cab, but 3 splash by, occupied lights glowing smugly. The 4th finally slows, mint green, smelling faintly of pine disinfectant and old leather. We tumble inside with relief. The driver, a woman in a tweed cap, raises an eyebrow at our soaked shoes. "Where to, ladies?" "University Row, please," I reply. "Science Building entrance." As the cab navigates puddle-pocked streets, I cradle the vine umbrella on my lap and catch my reflection in the rain-blurred window, eyes bright with restless curiosity. Claire unwraps one of my almond croissants, breaks it in 2, and hands me the larger half, peace offering for lost property woes. The interior is plush and marzipan sweet. Despite myself, I grin, flakes dusting my coat. Halfway to campus, the traffic light stalls and our driver mutters at the radio. Through the cab's fogging glass, I notice an elderly man shuffling along the opposite pavement, shoulders hunched under a flash of cobalt blue fabric. My heart ricochets. Could it be? "Excuse me? Can we pull over a moment?" I blurt. The driver, sensing urgency, steers toward the curb. I press my face to the window, but the man is already turning the corner by a florist's awning. "There," I whisper. "Blue umbrella. My umbrella, I think." Claire is halfway through sipping chocolate. She sets the cup down, eyes widening with huntress zeal. Rain sheets down as we spill from the taxi, shouting thanks and a promise to return. The driver shouts back something about unpaid fare, but it is lost in the downpour and my single-minded focus. We vault over a widening gutter and charge into the side street, pastry box wobbling perilously in Claire's arms. The figure ahead moves slowly, cane tapping. Even at this distance, I can see the umbrella. 5 perfect cobalt panels. One sporting a tiny crescent-shaped scratch, my scratch, earned when it brushed a brick wall outside Aldridge's books. Adrenaline surges. This is no coincidence. But how to approach without seeming accusatory? The poor man might have taken it by mistake, as I had with the vine canopy. We slow to a respectful pace, and I call out above the rain. "Sir, pardon, sir." He stops, turns, lifts curious brows beneath a flat cap dripping rain. His umbrella tilts back, water sluicing off the edges. "I believe that umbrella may be mine," I begin, breath clouding. "A mix-up at Pemberton's Patisserie, blue with a small scratch on panel 5? The gentleman peers, then blinks with dawning comprehension. "Mercy me," he says, voice like gravel softening under rain. "I did leave with the wrong one. I set mine in the rack and must have grabbed yours in haste." He raises his free hand, displaying a wax-sealed envelope. Edges damp. "Been in a dash to post a letter to my granddaughter? Shame on me for not noticing." Claire steps forward, charmed. "Happens to the best of us, sir. We have yours. Green with silver vines, initials M.R. His face lights up. "Martha Rosemary, my late wife's gift. Thought it lost forever." He chuckles, rain sliding down his nose. "Seems umbrellas have their own plans today." We exchange canopies with solemn ceremony, almost a nightly swap. The cobalt feels like home in my grasp. Water drums its familiar cadence overhead. He tests the green umbrella's spring, smile softening with nostalgia. "Allow me to compensate," he insists, reaching for his wallet. I refuse gently, explaining that solving the mix-up is reward enough. He presses 2 postage stamps into my palm instead. Vintage designs of constellations. "Good luck on whatever journeys await," he says, tipping his cap before shuffling toward the post office. Breathless and damp, Claire and I watch him go. A peal of thunder cracks like distant applause. We are triumphant, pastries intact, mystery resolved. Yet even as relief sinks in, I can't shake the sensation that the day still has surprises in reserve. Umbrellas may be back to their rightful owners, but the current of coincidence still hums through the air, a subtle electric promise. We jog back to the patient mint green taxi, settle the fare with hearty apologies, and resume our trip toward campus. Inside the cab's steamed windows, the world outside becomes impressionistic. Smears of neon, blurred pedestrians, spiraling raindrops racing gravity. My cobalt canopy rests against my knee, regal and steadfast, while the constellation stamps lie drying on my open palm, tiny galaxies awaiting destinations. Claire nudges me, voice soft. "Sweets and snafus, huh? Think the universe is done testing us for today?" I turn the stamps so their stars catch what little light filters through the storm. "Not a chance," I murmur, smiling. I have a feeling our lucky streak is only just beginning. And with a gentle jolt, the taxi glides forward, carrying us, and our confections, and our reclaimed Azure shield, toward whatever next twist the rain-soaked city intends to deliver. Chapter 4. Realization in the Market. The cab drops us a few streets shy of campus, the driver muttering about a waterlogged diversion that has turned University Row into a canal. "Best you cut through Hawthorne Market," she advises, jerking, a thumb toward a cluster of striped canopies glowing in the rain-soft afternoon. We settle the fare, Claire tipping extra for patience, then step back into the drizzle, pastries safeguarded beneath my reclaimed cobalt umbrella. Hawthorne Market unfurls before us like a patchwork quilt, awnings of ruby, saffron, and teal billow in the breeze, each tent spilling light and color onto the slick flagstones. The smell is an intoxicating swirl of things both earthy and sweet. Wet herbs, freshly split oranges, cinnamon-roasted almonds, petrichor rising from wooden crates. Rain patters on canvas overhead, drumming a syncopated rhythm that merchants unconsciously match as they call their wares. We join the flow of bargain hunters and daydreamers, Claire hugging the pastry box while I navigate puddles that mirror the carnival of hues above. I tilt my cobalt canopy so water cascades harmlessly off its edge, and for the first time since the mix-up, I find myself smiling without reservation. The umbrella, once a mere purchase, has become a talisman, proof that small strokes of fortune can still outshine inconvenience. At a stall crowded with herbs, a girl no older than 12 thrusts a bundle of rain-speckled mint toward us. "Smells like summer, promise," she chirps. I lean closer and inhale cool, peppery green. Claire laughs, the sound bright as a bell, and buys a bundle with coins pilfered from her coat's hidden pocket. She tucks it beside the eclairs, declaring that the study group will appreciate an herbal centerpiece. I suspect she just enjoys buying joy in small, fragrant doses. Deeper inside the market, the tents tighten into a narrow corridor. Strings of Edison bulbs zigzag overhead, their reflections fluttering across wet cobblestones like fireflies trapped under glass. A violinist in a moss-green coat plays a lilting waltz, bow dancing even as raindrops cling to his instrument. The melody slips around us, delicate yet resilient, much like the vines that adorned the umbrella I briefly carried. The thought pulls me up short. I turn, watching the violinist sway, and an unexpected clarity unfolds. Every element of this strange, rain-soaked afternoon, the thunder that drove me into Aldridge's shop, the sweet-laden patisserie that lured me from my umbrella, the elderly gentleman's urgent letter, even this detour through Hawthorne Market, has linked into a chain, each event nudging me toward the next with the subtlety of a domino toppling in gentle, slow motion. What began as a simple quest to stay dry has already spun a web of connections. Claire's laughter, stamps etched with constellations now tucked in my pocket. The memory of silver vines belonging to a stranger's late wife. A flash of cobalt in a nearby mirror stalls my reverie. I pivot to find myself facing a stall of vintage wares, picture frames, tarnished candlesticks, carved walking sticks. Propped on an easel is an oval cheval glass, its edge strung with raindrops. In that glass I see my reflection, hair damp, but curling defiantly, coat peppered with pastry flakes, and that radiant umbrella arching overhead like a private piece of twilight sky. Yet behind that familiar image, the mirror also captures the restless theater of the market. Customers weaving, traders shouting, lives intersecting in a choreography too complex to script. I realize, truly realize, that I have entered a living collage of chance, each brushstroke determined by weather, appetite, and the kindness or haste of strangers. The umbrella is no longer the protagonist of this tale, but a supporting actor, emblem of serendipity. I feel something shift inside me, a widening of perspective like a skylight thrown open. Today's inconveniences are only doorways, and I have walked through one without knowing. Claire calls my name, breaking the spell. She is stooped at a table laden with antique keys, each labeled with a tiny handwritten tag. Attic, garden gate, tall boy, hope chest. Look, she says, holding up a slender bronze key that glints against the drizzle. Doesn't it remind you of something out of Narnia? I grin and answer that perhaps one day we'll find the wardrobe to match. The vendor, an elderly woman with bright eyes, winks and says she sells wardrobes on Thursdays. We drift farther, the market opening into a circular plaza where an iron fountain stands silent. The town shut off its water long ago, but the basin is full today, courtesy of the sky. Coins glitter on the bottom, indistinct through rippling rain. Claire nudges me. Silently, we each flip a penny, sending twin rings across the surface. My wish is simple, that the momentum of happy accidents keeps carrying us forward. Near the fountain, a chalkboard sign catches my eye. Campus Charity Book Fair. Today only. Volunteers needed. Rows of collapsible tables sag under boxes of second-hand books guarded by two rain-spattered students in yellow ponchos, clearly short-handed. Claire's glance says exactly what mine does. Our afternoon has room for one more detour. She claims she can manage pastry delivery later. Studying can wait an hour. I nod, enchanted by the idea of returning full circle to books, the place where this day began. We check in with the lead volunteer, a blur of gratitude behind fogged glasses, and within minutes I am sliding volumes across plastic sheeting, calling prices to passing customers while Claire wraps purchases in reused brown paper. The rain slackens to a mist now, blurring the plaza's edges into watercolor softness. My cobalt umbrella rests open behind me, sheltering a stack of poetry chapbooks that would otherwise be lost to damp pages. Halfway through my shift, a young man in a charcoal coat appears, sheltering under a broad black umbrella banded with silver. His face is half hidden by the hood of his coat, but something about his posture, alert yet hesitant, draws my attention. As he approaches, drops slide down the arc of his umbrella, catching fleeting sparks of light. He stops at the poetry stack, fingers lingering on a worn edition of Rainer Maria Rilke. "You should read the sonnets to Orpheus," I tell him without thinking. He glances up, and a spark of recognition passes between us, though we have never met. Not familiarity exactly, more an intuitive awareness that our threads in this vast tapestry are about to cross. His mouth tilts into a curious smile. "I've been meaning to," he says, voice warm, "but I never find the right copy." He lifts the book, careful not to wet the pages, and the silver-banded umbrella tips, sending a miniature waterfall onto the flagstones. As I ring up his purchase, he notices my cobalt guardian propped nearby. "That's quite the color," he remarks, "like deep sea glass." "Fortuitous bargain," I reply. "It's already saved my day, twice." "Lucky things have a habit of returning luck," he says, sliding coins across the table. The phrase echoes in my head like a stone dropped into water, concentric rings expanding. He thanks me, tucks the book into his coat and steps away, but not before offering his name. Marcus. "Maybe I'll see you again, Blue Umbrella friend." The words hang in the mist as he disappears between tents. Claire sidles over, eyebrows raised to dangerous heights. I can only shrug, cheeks inexplicably warm despite the cool air. The book fair winds down. Rain thins to scattered droplets chased by late sunlight. Volunteers pack damp boxes and fold tables. Claire and I retrieve our belongings, umbrella and pastry box still miraculously dry. As we leave the plaza, a shaft of golden evening light breaks through ragged clouds, catching the cobalt canopy and igniting it in brilliant ultramarine. I pause, struck by the sudden radiance, and by the realization that every ordinary thing can become extraordinary under the right light. We thread back onto the main street, campus spires finally visible beyond the rooftops. My steps feel lighter, my mind alive with fresh connections, mint bought from a child, keys promising secret doors, books rescued from drizzle, a stranger named Marcus whose words linger like aftertaste. The storm that once felt inconvenient now seems conspiratorial, rearranging the world so that paths might intersect. As we crest the hill toward the science building, Claire nudges me again. "Tell me your wish," she says, recalling the fountain pennies. "I wished," I answer, lifting my umbrella to watch sunlight prism through the last droplets, "that today wouldn't be the only day like this." Claire laughs, a sound as clear as ringing glass, and replies, "Then hold on tight to that umbrella. I have a feeling it's your passport to all sorts of impossible itineraries." I glance up at the cobalt dome still shining despite the fading rain, and inside I feel a quiet certainty settling, like a compass finding north. This day's mosaic of chance is only the prologue. Tomorrow, next week, next storm, who knows what markets of possibility await? For now, though, we shoulder open the heavy doors of the science building, arms full of pastries, mint, and second-hand books. Behind us, Hawthorne Market hums on, dusk, gathering in its lanterns, rain nodding goodbye on tent rooftops. And somewhere within that vibrant maze, the echoes of realization ring faint but clear, promising that serendipity favors those who dare to follow a blue umbrella into the storm. Chapter 5. The Park Encounter. Night has settled over campus with that deep, velvet hush that descends after rain. I push open the heavy doors of the science building and step into the damp stillness outside, my satchel bulging with half-finished lab notes in the pastry box, miraculously uncrushed, reserved for Claire's study group. The storm has finally spent itself. Only a fine mist hangs in the air, twinkling whenever it drifts beneath a lamppost. I decide to cross Langford Park before heading home. The shortcut will save 10 minutes, time better spent practicing slides than pacing wet pavements, and the air smells wonderfully of turned earth and pine. The wrought iron gates creak as I swing them behind me. Inside, the world feels cut loose from lectures and deadlines. Lamps stand sentinel along the gravel path, their amber pools of light revealing rain-polished leaves, benches still glistening, and the black water mirror of the ornamental pond. Farther on, a pair of willows trail silver needles into a dark ripple. My cobalt umbrella is folded now, hooked over my arm like a well-mannered companion. I let the cold lace my lungs and, for the first time all afternoon, let my shoulders unclench. Halfway along the central avenue, I spy an empty bench beneath a plane tree whose branches drip silvery beads. I sit, balancing the pastry box beside me, and fish out the slim Rilke volume I bought at the book fair. The same book Marcus admired before vanishing into the tents. I open to the first sonnet and begin to read by lamplight. The wet hush around me so complete that I can hear the flutter of each turning page. Minutes pass. A clock in the library tower strikes 9. 9 slow, solemn chimes that roll over the lawns like distant surf. I close the book and lean back, feeling the wood dampen my coat. Somewhere behind me, tires hiss on wet tarmac. Somewhere ahead, a mallard scolds unseen trespassers in the reeds. The park is otherwise deserted until footsteps crunch on gravel to my left. Measured, unhurried, yet purposeful enough that I sit up, alert. A tall figure rounds the curve of the path. Charcoal coat, hood pushed back, an umbrella banded with silver stripes held low at his shoulder. Even in the uncertain light, I recognize the easy gait and the inquisitive set of the chin. "Blue umbrella, friend," he calls softly, raising a hand. "We meet again. Marcus." The words flutter in my chest like startled birds. I lift my own umbrella in greeting, suddenly aware of how ridiculous my hair must look after a day of drizzle in laboratories. He stops a cautious distance away, studying me with a half-smile that seems equal parts relief and curiosity. "I hoped it was you," he says. "The color gave you away even folded." I gesture to the empty stretch of bench. "Plenty of room, if you don't mind damp wood." He folds his umbrella, shakes off droplets, and lowers himself beside me. The lamplight draws soft copper flecks in his dark hair and limns a faint steam, where the mist settles on warmed fabric. For a moment, neither of us speaks. We simply watch the pond absorb stray rings of water and listen to the sycamores whisper overhead. "I didn't catch your name at the fair," he ventures at last. "It's Isabella," I reply, "and I didn't catch yours properly, only that you were Marcus of the Rilke persuasion." He laughs, a warm, low sound that rises like breath on cold glass. "Guilty as charged, Marcus Bell, graduate student, philosophy department. Though tonight I feel more like a drenched philosopher than a practicing one. We trade the usual coordinates, course loads, favorite cafes, thesis nightmares, until conversation settles into a comfortable rhythm, as natural as breathing damp night air. I tell him about Claire and the eclairs, about the umbrella mix-up and the constellation stamps now safe in my notebook. He, in turn, admits he lingered at the market longer than intended, hoping the blue umbrella girl might wander past again. Purely to ask which sonnet you'd recommend next. he insists with mock solemnity. The mist thickens, beating on my umbrella's canopy until it resembles a sky full of tiny stars. I flick them absently, sending constellations scattering into the grass. Marcus follows the gesture with his eyes. That shade of blue, he says, reminds me of a story my grandmother used to tell about a sailor who bottled pieces of night to carry across seas. He folds his hands, suddenly shy. I realize I'm in danger of romanticizing simple canvas. I like it, I answer. Perhaps umbrellas are just bottled nights waiting to be reopened. We fall into silence, not awkward, but reflective, as if testing how easily companionable quiet can stretch between two near strangers. Far off, a cluster of first years shriek with laughter, their silhouettes flitting past the library steps before being swallowed by trees. The park reclaims its hush. The willows drip in gentle applause. Then, from the north entrance, hurried footsteps echo, sharp, purposeful, crunching over gravel with a staccato urgency. Marcus straightens. A second figure appears under the nearest lamp. A woman my height, short dark hair slicked back by rain, a satchel slung messenger-style across a Burberry trench. She carries an umbrella too, but hers is unmistakably cobalt, identical to mine in every visible detail. My pulse stutters. She spots us and accelerates, heels clicking. 30 paces away, she hails, "Marcus? Marcus Bell?" Her voice carries a faint, cultured lilt. Marcus stands, brows knitting. "Yes. Can I help you?" He steps forward, but the woman's gaze is pinned to me. She halts a few feet shy, anger and relief vying on her face. "You walked off with my umbrella," she says to me, accusatory. "That one." She jabs a finger at the folded canopy in my grip. It even has the scratch on the 5th panel. I've been hunting all over campus. I blink, stunned. Out of reflex, I unfold my umbrella, pivot it so the lamplight exposes the crescent-shaped scratch. My thoughts race. Was my umbrella the elderly gentleman's after all? But he recognized the vine green as his. Could there be two identical cobalt umbrellas with identical scars? Marcus clears his throat. "Hold on." "Hannah," he murmurs to the woman. "Perhaps it's a coincidence." She shakes her head. "I'm quite certain." And then softer. "It was a gift from my mother before she left for Montreal. I'd know it anywhere." Her voice wavers on that last word, and embarrassment flickers across her features. This isn't petty possessiveness, but sentimental panic. My grip loosens. I study the handle, scan the ferrule. There, etched faintly near the strap buckle, tiny initials HE. How had I missed them? My cheeks heat with mortification. This was sold to me at Aldridge's second-hand stand. I swear I didn't realize. My words tumble in apologies. If these are your initials, I must have bought it unknowingly. Please take it. She exhales, shoulders sagging with gratitude. Thank you. Her hand hovers, hesitant, as if still fearing refusal. I pass the umbrella over, and in that moment a thin line of rain chooses to fall, softly pattering across our heads like punctuating ellipses. For the second time in one day, I find myself umbrella-less in a shower. Marcus reacts first, popping open his black and silver model and angling it to shelter us both. The three of us cluster awkwardly under its generous arc, a lopsided triangle of relief and mild embarrassment. Hannah, now calmer, explains she is head archivist for the Museum of Maritime History across town, that the umbrella vanished from the staff cloakroom during a particularly chaotic afternoon. She filed a lost property report, but storms and timetables delayed follow-up. Tonight, leaving late, she glimpsed a cobalt flash in the rain near North Lane and followed it, presuming it to be hers. Her gratitude is genuine. She presses a museum VIP pass into my palm. Come see the Polar Exploration exhibit after hours, she urges. Bring a friend. Marcus arches a brow at me. Friend? I tuck the pass into my coat, heart beating a little faster than the climb warrants. When Hannah departs, umbrella reclaimed, the rain chooses that exact moment to relent again, as though the sky merely orchestrated the mix-up for its own amusement. Clouds roll back, revealing slices of moonlight that silver the pond and brighten Marcus's smile. So, he says, closing his umbrella with a flourish, seems luck still circles that cobalt shade, even if it isn't technically yours. I'm 2 for 2 on umbrella confusions, I admit, laughing at the absurdity. Perhaps the universe is advising me to stick with hoods. Or perhaps it's nudging you toward interesting people, he counters. Archivists, philosophers. His gaze holds mine a fraction longer than casual. Would you like to use that exhibit pass together? We could call it field research. Night skies bottled indoors this time. I feign deliberation, tapping my chin. Will there be pastries of suitably historic provenance? Rumor has it the museum Café does a legendary gingerbread schooner. He offers an exaggerated scholar's bow. For science, naturally. Moonlight slides between drifting clouds. The lawns glimmer like wet velvet. I think of my half-finished slides waiting on the dorm room desk, of Claire munching eclairs with her study group, of the sailor's tale Marcus's grandmother told, night, bottled to light a journey. And I realize how unexpectedly bright this day has become. I accept, Professor Bell, I say, extending a hand for a shake that becomes, instead, a gentle clasp. But next time, I add, I'm bringing a leash for whatever umbrella I'm carrying. He laughs, promise glinting in his eyes. Together, we exit Langford Park, shoes squeaking on damp gravel, sharing one black and silver umbrella beneath a sky that now appears translucently clear, as though the storm existed only to guide two wayward pedestrians to the same bench beneath the dripping plane tree. At the gate, Marcus pauses, looking back at the path we traveled. Funny, he muses, how the night rearranges itself around simple decisions. Take a shortcut, stay an extra minute, buy a book on a whim. Funny, I agree, and think of the chain I noticed earlier, dominoes still tumbling in elegant procession. I lean the pastry box into his free hand so I can flick water from my sleeves. In that case, let's keep choosing odd streets and heavy books. Who knows where the next echo leads? We leave the park for the lamplit avenue beyond, footsteps, in easy sync, conversation blooming anew. Behind us, the moon sparks a final shimmer on the pond before clouds drift back, drawing a velvet curtain on Langford Park. A stage now quiet, but set for the next act in a story that began with thunder and a single piece of bottled night. Chapter 6. A Graceful Offer. The avenue beyond Langford Park is hushed, its slate pavement shining like a dark mirror beneath the street lamps. A fine, ghostly drizzle still drifts through the air, too light to warrant Marcus's umbrella, but bright enough to dust every glowing halo of light with silver. We fall into step, two silhouettes outlined by lantern gold, my pastry box balanced carefully in Marcus's spare hand, his black and silver umbrella folded beneath one arm like a ceremonious baton. For 100 quiet meters, neither of us speaks. My mind is still replaying the peculiar symmetry of the evening, how a single color drew us together twice, how an archivist appeared from the rainy dark to reclaim a memory, how a stranger's story became part of my own. I glance sideways. Marcus's hood has slipped back, exposing damp curls that glint whenever we cross under a lamp. His expression is thoughtful, a philosopher parsing the logic of coincidence. Finally, he breaks the stillness. "Isabella?" he begins, voice pitched low so it doesn't disturb the delicate hush. "I've been thinking about your presentation tomorrow. Environmental science, you said? Pollution mitigation in freshwater systems?" I nod, surprised. He remembers the title. That's right. I'm modeling nutrient sink dynamics for post-industrial rivers. His smile curves, half playful, half earnest. There's a cafe along the riverfront, harbor and hearth, open late for students, pulling heroic study sessions. They do gingerbread schooners as big as your palm, and they have reliable Wi-Fi. Would you let me buy you one and run through your slides? I promise I'm harmless, and I wield a decent red pen if you want quick feedback. The suggestion hangs, luminous in the mist. Warmth, coffee, and gingerbread in exchange for a stranger's keen eye. A graceful offer made without presumption, without hurry. I feel the last knots of the long day loosen. That sounds dangerously delightful, I answer, laughing softly. But fair warning, my deck is 42 slides of hydrology graphs. Graphs are just philosophy in disguise, he counters. Both search for hidden patterns. He points ahead to a side street lit by fairy lights strung between wrought iron brackets. The cafe is 5 minutes that way, unless you need to be home. A quick inventory of obligations flits through my head. Rehearsal of notes, ironing, a blouse, maybe 5 hours of sleep if I'm disciplined, but the night's cadence feels too rare to fold away just yet. I shake my head. 5 minutes sounds perfect. We turn and let the gentle slope guide us downward. The riverfront lies beyond a stone archway where waterlogged ivy perfumes the air with a deep, earthy sweetness. An old tram line threads beside the path, its rails filled with rainwater that reflects the strings of Edison bulbs overhead. Each puddle passes underfoot like a tiny lantern. The hum of distant traffic gives way to the soft rush of the river, swollen from the afternoon deluge. Somewhere downstream a tugboat horn moans, a melancholy bass note that makes my ribs vibrate. Harbor and Hearth occupies the ground floor of a converted boathouse. Inside, cedar-paneled walls glow auburn beneath pendant lamps shaped like miniature lighthouses. The room smells of espresso, molasses, cinnamon, damp wool, and faint river silt that sneaks in whenever the door swings wide. A brass coal stove squats in the corner, its mica windows pulsing like tiny suns. Students cluster around mismatched tables, laptops humming, textbooks spread like colorful wings, mugs standing sentinel beside towers of note cards. We slip into a half-moon booth by a porthole window, rain still threading down the glass outside. Marcus orders for us while I set up my aging tablet. True to legend, the gingerbread schooners arrive tall-rigged with almond paste sails, a sugared jolly boat trailing behind in a rivulet of caramel sauce. Steam curls off our mugs, mine a dark hazelnut latte, His a chamomile that smells of bruised apples and honey. When the barista retreats, Marcus slides a bright orange pencil from his coat, flips open a recycled notebook, and nods once. "Show me your river." I cast the presentation to his screen. Slide by slide, we navigate colorful bathymetry, time series nitrate curves, satellite imagery of algal bloom hotspots. Marcus listens with his chin propped on folded hands, jotting the occasional note, "Define phosphorus lockup," or swap axes for clarity. He never interrupts, never frowns, only leans closer whenever my voice falters. Every so often I catch our twin reflections in the porthole glass, two lantern-lit profiles sailing through data seas, gingerbread, ships listing slightly as the caramel tide recedes. When the last slide fades, he exhales as if surfacing from depth. "Your argument is elegant, Isabella. But Chapter 4 underplays the social dimension. Decision-makers need narrative. Show them the human shoreline, not just the chemical plume. Try a photograph. Children fishing beside warning signs, or farmers dredging water for crops." I blink. The suggestion is simple, brilliant, and embarrassingly obvious now that he's said it. That would anchor the urgency, I admit. Thank you. Pleasure. He breaks the schooner's bow, passes the larger share to me. Consider it consulting fee. For an hour we trade insight for pastry, equations for anecdotes. He explains that his thesis maps moral responsibility in environmental policy, how language choices shape public will. I confess I collect vintage keys because each one is a question mark made of metal. He nods gravely, then laughs. Outside, the river keeps time in slow-moving reflections. Students leave, chairs scrape, the barista dims half the lamps. The coal stove murmurs, its warmth brushing our shins like a lazy cat. Near midnight, I tuck the last slide edits into a folder and power down. The cafe is nearly empty now. Only us, the barista wiping counters and a couple dozing over flashcards. Rain has stopped entirely. Beyond the porthole, Orion's belt glints between tattered clouds. I stretch, wincing at the stiffness in my shoulders. Marcus notices. "One last graceful offer," he announces. I live 3 blocks upriver, North Bank townhouse, attic flat with enthusiastic roof leaks. "You're welcome to borrow this." He lifts his umbrella and twirls it, silver bands flashing. "Take it home tonight. Presentations and puddles don't mix, and I can dodge drops. Attic leaks are worse." The gesture disarms me. A stranger's. Umbrella again, but this time willingly given. I open my mouth to refuse. After all, I have a hood. But he preempts. I insist. Tomorrow we'll see each other at the museum around 6. Exhibit preview. Yes? You'll return it then, and I'll treat you to the world's smallest cup of maritime-themed espresso. Fair trade. His eyes are bright, but not from cafe light. There's something steady there, a generosity unmarred by agenda, the sort that anchors faith in coincidences. I close my palm around the umbrella's handle, warm where he'd been holding it. Deal, I say softly, but only if you let me buy that espresso. He theatrically pretends to weigh the offer. Outside, the riverfront is rinsed clean, cobblestones sparkling under early winter stars. We stroll to the footbridge where our paths diverge. His left toward the north bank, townhouses, mine straight into the academic quarter. Halfway across, the lamps flicker as if raising a silent toast. He pauses, leaning on the railing, arms folded against the chill. Water sighs beneath us, swollen and content. Good luck tomorrow, Isabella, he says. May your data sing, in major key. I laugh. And may your attic roof hold tonight. We trade smiles, calm, deliberate, unrushed. Then he steps back, presses a mock military salute, and turns toward his side of the river, boots ringing on steel plates. I watch until the curve of the embankment hides him, umbrella swinging empty at his side like a quiet promise. I cross alone, Marcus's silver-banded umbrella sheltering the pastry box, the amended slides, the fountain pennies, and a head thrumming with possibility. At my dorm gates I pause, pop the umbrella, and study its underside. The silken panels are a deep smoke gray, stitched in precise concentric rings, simple, sturdy, graceful. A steady companion for the walk ahead. The night air is crisp, unsalted, by rain now, and the hush feels charged, as if every quiet brick and leaf were holding its breath for tomorrow's unfolding. I tip the umbrella in gratitude to the sky. Somewhere behind me, on the other bank, a light appears in an attic window and winks 3 times before blacking out. I smile, uncertain whether it's Marcus or coincidence or both. By the time I reach my room, the pastry box is still intact. The slides are twice as persuasive, and my heart, though tired, beats with the buoyancy of bottled night. I set the umbrella by the door, a silver ribbon catching moonlight, and whisper into the quiet. Grace accepted. Unseen, the campus clock tower strikes 1, its chimes floating through star-flecked darkness like ripples from a friendly stone. And so the day that began with thunder ends with an open umbrella offered in kindness. The simplest of gifts, carried like an invisible sail toward whatever sunrise will make of Chapter 7. Chapter 7. By the Riverside Café. Morning smolders into early afternoon before I dare exhale. My presentation, the one Marcus helped me sharpen just hours ago, is finally behind me. 42 slides, 3 faculty questions, one unexpected round of applause when the last nitrate curve dissolved into a photograph of children fly fishing beside a newly decontaminated bank. When the session ends, I linger at the lectern, pulse thundering like yesterday's storm, pretending to sort cables while the room empties. My professor squeezes my shoulder and whispers, "Compelling narrative, Isabel. The policy panel will want to see that deck." Marcus's ghost note advice rings in my ears. Show them the human shoreline. I pack the tablet, fetch the VIP pass from my pocket, and feel a surge of clean, buoyant relief. For the first time in weeks, my mind is not in rehearsal mode. It is free, humming with the promise of a plan already drawn. Museum at 6, espresso smaller than a thimble, the handoff of his umbrella. That simple exchange feels like a hinge on which the rest of my day now swings. To fill the hours between, I let my feet drift to the riverfront. The sky is pearl gray, held aloft by ragged clouds that threaten nothing more sinister than a sprinkle. I carry 2 guardians, Marcus's charcoal and silver umbrella and my own cobalt one, folded neatly like a flag of honor. The pastry box is gone, relinquished to Claire's grateful study group. Only crumbs and applause remained when I slipped out of the lab. The Briar and Sluice comes into view, a low-slung riverside café built into the stone ribs of the old lock-keeper's cottage. From street level, it looks like an ivy-draped hobbit house. From the quay, it reveals wide windows that rest almost at water height, giving patrons the illusion of floating. A hand-painted sign promises steep brewed teas, tidal views, and scandalously good sandwiches. I remember, suddenly, that Marcus had once written a philosophy essay here titled Epistemology in Minor Keys. He mentioned it while sketching red pen arrows across my sediment diagram. The coincidence feels too sweet to ignore. Inside, the cafe smells of Earl Grey, toasted walnut, and oiled wood. Sunlight snakes through river-facing panes, fracturing into bright lozenges on the floorboards. A pianist in the corner tests a few lazy chords. The sound drifts across the room like sailboats tacking against a mild breeze. I claim a table beside the window and spread out. Laptop, notebook, both umbrellas. The silver-banded one I lean upright, its polished handle catching shreds of afternoon light. A barista with a silver septum ring appears. "What can I tempt you with, Captain?" she asks, a playful nod to my river-level seat. I order a rosemary sea salt latte and, on impulse, a sandwich called the River Bargeman, smoked trout, pickled fennel, lemon dill cream on rye. She salutes and glides away. While waiting, I open my notebook to yesterday's pages. Marcus's orange pencil scrawl nested between my ink diagrams. Underline after underline reminds me how quickly our conversation found depth. Phosphorus kinetics 1 minute, moral poetry the next. My pen hovers, then writes, "Chance only looks arbitrary up close. Step back and it resembles calligraphy." The sentence feels both borrowed and wholly mine. I add a star. My food arrives in an aromatic cloud. The latte, crowned with a foam swirl, tastes like a walk through a Mediterranean herb garden after rain. The sandwich is smoky, sharp, perfect. Each bite slows my breath. Each sip blurs the cafe into water-colored serenity. Outside, the river moves thick and green, gulls looping in lazy mathematics above the sluice gates. Halfway through the meal, a gentle tap disrupts my tranquility. A woman in a cornflower blue courier jacket stands by my table, helmet under one arm. "Delivery for Isabella Hastings," she says, reading from her phone. "That's me," I answer, startled. She passes over a small, flat parcel wrapped in antique map paper and tied with twine the color of river silt. The return label reads simply, MB. I sign the courier's tablet. She vanishes in a whirl of spokes and reflective strips. Heart. Ticking faster now, I untie the twine. Inside, nestled in tissue, is a slim hardback book, The Sailor Who Bottled Night. A note is tucked under the front flap, written in Marcus's quick, upright hand. "Isabella, you said umbrellas are bottled. Nights waiting to be reopened. Couldn't resist hunting down the folk tale my grandmother used to recite. Thought it might keep you company between deadlines and deluges. See you at 6. Don't be too punctual. Museums are prettier after hours." M.I. traced the gilt title, amused and moved in equal measure. The cover shows a tiny skiff afloat on an indigo sea, stars corked in green glass bottles dangling from its mast. Beneath it, someone has penned in fountain pen ink the phrase, "Third edition, 1928, limited run." The book hums with old-world library dust and grandmotherly lavender. A librarian's heart, mine, skips. I tuck the gift safely into my bag, cheeks warming. A glance at the wall clock, 14:42, leaves ample time before 6. But suddenly I don't want to fill it with spreadsheets. Instead, I pull out the Rilke sonnets, reading them aloud in a whisper no louder than a ripple. Patrons drift in and out. a pair of rowers with sunburnt cheeks, a professor grading essays, red pen tapping like a metronome, a trio of pensioners arguing cheerfully about whether mallards prefer croissants or baguettes. The café becomes a gentle tide of strangers' stories washing around my island of quiet. Occasionally my eyes stray to Marcus's umbrella, propped against the seat opposite. Its silver bands gleam like rings of Saturn. It feels companionably stoic, guarding our corner as if sworn to duty. I catch myself smiling at an inanimate object and shake my head. Hours trickle by in peaceful anonymity until the door bursts open on a gust of wind that flutters sheet music pages at the pianist's feet. A tour group piles in, German accents, bright scarves, laughter echoing like a flock of geese. They crowd the bar. The pianist segues into an upbeat ragtime to match their energy. The calm lagoon of the café churns into cheerful chaos. My cue, I decide, to depart. I settle my bill, tuck the sailor who bottled night into my satchel, and step onto the quay. Late afternoon light proofs the river in pale gold, and the air tastes faintly of ozone, hinting at a distant storm readying its overture. Wind stirs my hair. I open Marcus's umbrella, spite of sunlight, just to feel its balance. The canopy mushrooms above me, silver rings catching the sun so brightly they almost squeak. The museum lies upstream, a 10-minute waterside walk. I choose the towpath rather than the road. Barges tied too deep clink with soft metallic sighs. An old collie dozes on hatch covers, one eye cracked to track my passing. Up ahead, a florist on a pedal cart sells last-minute bouquets to commuters. Sun-fat tulips lean drunkenly in buckets, color puddling at their stems. A chalkboard outside. The cart declares storm shelter special, 2 sunflowers and a sprig of lavender, 4. I pause. Sunflowers for courage, lavender for calm. Why not? The florist, a boy no older than 17, wraps them in parchment inked with constellations. Again, the day's silent leitmotif. I slip the bundle inside the umbrella's curve. Golden petals. Peek beneath the silver ribbing. At precisely 16 minutes past 5, I reach the North Bank Museum of Maritime History. Its granite facade looms like the prow of a colossal stone ship, figurehead carved in the shape of a flying gull. A crimson banner announces polar shadows, exploration at the end of the earth. I am early, as Marcus predicted. Rather than wait, on the granite steps, I veer to the right where a tiny annex houses the Mooring Post Café, the museum's own coffee nook that opens onto a cantilevered deck above the water. A maitre d' in a navy waistcoat greets me. Exhibit guest? Meeting someone, I explain, flashing the VIP pass Hannah gave me. He gestures graciously toward the deck. Outdoors, wrought iron tables overlook the river's widening mouth. The tide is turning. Currents swirl in slow whirls like dark smoke beneath glass. I choose a seat at the rail, set Marcus's umbrella against the balustrade, and watch the city's skyline begin its electric bloom as dusk tiptoes in. Office windows ignite domino style. Streetlights flicker awake. The river snatches each reflection and spins it into elongated ribbons that slither with the tide. A waitress brings complimentary espresso for VIP guests. A demi-tasse so tiny it seems conjured from dollhouse porcelain. Steam curls upward carrying bittersweet promise. I swirl it, breathing in the roasty proof of Marcus's prediction. While I wait, I reopen The Sailor Who Bottled Night. The first page unfurls a watercolor frontispiece. A lone figure on a moonlit deck capturing stars in bottles with a butterfly net. Below, in spidery handwriting, to those who keep their lanterns lit even in daylight. The dedication feels intimately addressed. I trace the words, absorbing their resonance. Footsteps sound. I look up expecting Marcus, but see Hannah, the archivist, instead. She is out of her trench coat, wearing a navy blazer embroidered with the museum crest. Her reclaimed cobalt umbrella rests like a scepter. She smiles when she spots me. Isabella, isn't it? I was hoping to thank you properly before the preview. She slides into the chair beside me, produces 2 exhibit lanyards. Marcus asked me to relay. He's delayed on campus but won't be long. I pass her the sunflowers. A peace offering for almost walking off with your mother's umbrella forever. Her eyes soften behind librarian glasses. She'd approve. She gestures at the silver-banded umbrella by my side. Borrowed again? She teases. I've developed a reputation, I confess, laughing. Like a magpie except with rain gear. We talk until streaks of apricot fade to violet along the horizon. Hannah describes cataloging Shackleton's sextant and a diary found frozen inside a biscuit tin. I recount my successful presentation, Marcus's pencil edits, the improbable courier delivery. She nods knowingly. Marcus curates lives the way I curate artifacts. He's deliberate. Nothing shared with him is forgotten. As true dusk settles, museum windows blaze alive behind us. A bell inside signals 5:45. Hannah rises. I need to brief the docents, she says. But first, she taps the lanyards. Wear this. It'll open staff doors if you two wander. She disappears through a side entrance. I slip the lanyard over my head, sip the remaining espresso. It is, in fact, the world's smallest cup. A familiar calm descends, buoyed by caffeine and Riverside hush. I watch the tide slobber against pilings. Somewhere upriver, a barge horn moans 3 notes that might be mistaken for a lullaby. At 17:58, a silhouette emerges inside the museum foyer. Tall, coat slightly askew, messenger bag thumping hip. Marcus steps through the glass doors, scans until his eyes snag mine across the deck. His expression shifts from searching to unmistakable warmth, like a lantern relit. He strides over, rain-slick cobbles ringing. Wind flutters the hem of his coat. Without preamble, he produces a parcel wrapped in brown paper. Your biscotti ransom per our negotiation. He hands it over before I can protest. I lift Marcus's umbrella, offer it back with a mock bow. Parley achieved. He spins it deftly, folds it home to his side, then notices the sunflowers tucked beneath the silver ribs. Currying favor with archivists? Balancing the cosmic ledger, I reply. Turns out I'm a repeat offender. He laughs, and the sound weaves into the river breeze. Shall we see how night looks bottled in glass cases? Arm in arm we cross the threshold, lanyards glinting. Inside the museum, lights dim automatically, directing us down a corridor where Arctic winds howl softly from hidden speakers. The door sighs shut behind us, sealing away city noise. Only the hush of curated time ahead, ice-sawed hulls, compass roses, flasks of whale oil glowing amber. But that adventure belongs to Chapter 8. For now, nestled between river dusk and museum dark, linger 2 umbrellas, one cobalt in Hannah's careful hands, one silver banded at Marcus's side, and a new chapter unfolding like tidewater over untouched sand. Chapter 8. Late for the presentation. I do not remember falling asleep. One moment Marcus and I were standing beneath the suspended sledge of endurance, listening to a docent explain how Shackleton measured latitude by dead reckoning, and the next I was back in my dorm room, fully clothed, cheek pressed to a stack of note cards that smelled faintly of lavender and old vellum. Outside, dawn was only a soot-gray smear above the rooftops. I must have stumbled home on muscle memory alone, my cobalt umbrella folded like a flag under my arm, the museum's midnight hush still echoing in my ears. The first alarm on my phone was scheduled for 8:30. The device died at 8:29. At 5:47 a.m., 7.5 hours after the polar exhibit and exactly 28 minutes before Marcus was due on stage at the philosophy department colloquium, my spare alarm clock startled itself to life. The plastic contraption emitted a single strangled bleep before its battery expired. That meager chirp was enough to yank me out of the fog. I shot upright, heart detonating against my ribs. The room reeled, daylight too bright, clothing everywhere. Silver-banded umbrella, Marcus's umbrella, propped accusingly in the corner. Then the realization struck like ice water on the spine. Marcus's talk. The weight of words, rhetoric, and moral agency in climate policy. He had mentioned it at the café, half sheepish, half proud. I had promised to drop. With the freshly annotated slide deck we fine-tuned together, and the deck was still on my laptop. My laptop was still in my satchel. My satchel was buried under yesterday's rain-damp coat. I scrambled, pulling on the first clothes my hands found. Black jeans, a wine-stained conference tee, the navy blazer with chalk dust on the cuff. No time for vanity. I jabbed hairpins, wherever curls rebelled, and slapped my glasses onto a face that felt 2 sizes too puffy. 52. Lightning-fast mental arithmetic. Marcus's lecture theater, Wyatt Hall, lay across the river on South Campus, a 13-minute walk in dry weather, or 9 if I sprinted and all pedestrian lights were green, except rain had returned. Of course it had, spattering the windows with gleeful insistence. I seized both umbrellas. Cobalt Sentinel for me, silver-banded Guardian for him. Laptop, charger, USB stick, stuffed them into the satchel, praying the zipper would hold. Then, with shoes half-laced and lungs already heaving, I bolted. The dash across campus rain slapped the paving stones in diagonal sheets, as though the very clouds hoped to impede me. I rammed the cobalt umbrella open mid-stride. It bloomed overhead with a shuddering whump, deflecting a small waterfall that would have drowned my laptop on contact. The air smelled of ozone and petrichor, sharpened by the undertone of wet lilac drifting from the quadrangle beds. I tore past the library cloisters, nearly colliding with 3 freshmen who wore their duvet covers like Roman togas. They hollered encouragement, something about, "Run, thesis girl, run." But the wind shred their words into confetti behind me. At the Hawthorne footbridge, a bottleneck of umbrellas bobbed like dark mushrooms, each walker inching across the slick planks. I couldn't afford the queue. Instead, I veered onto the B service catwalk below. A metal grate barely wide enough for 1 person, suspended a meter above the swollen river. Water hissed through the grating, splashing my calves with ice melt runoff. My breath plumed in ragged bursts. Behind me, the bridge. Crowd gasped. Someone yelled, "You'll get yourself killed!" But the wind snatched the warning away. A gull wheeled overhead, screeching as if to accompany the timpani of my heart. I clutched the umbrella tighter, praying the gusts would not invert it. The cobalt dome bowed, but held. 03. 6 minutes. To showtime. Printing pandemonium. Wyatt Hall reared into view, a brutalist ziggurat mottled with rain-black stains. Lecture Theater B was on the 3rd floor, but first I needed paper copies of Marcus's discussion handout. He insisted on physical pages so audience members could annotate the utilitarian detours. The building's ground floor printer station was mercifully empty until I dashed inside and discovered the toner cartridge lying dissected on the counter, gears like exposed bones. Panic jackhammered my chest. Then I remembered Plan B, the old-fashioned mimeograph in the janitor's supply alcove. Hardly anyone used it since color lasers became free last semester, but I had befriended Mr. Odell, the custodian, during a volunteer cleanup. 20 seconds. Later, I was in his domain, begging the universe for functioning stencils. Luck or karma, paid in full. Fresh ink, intact drum, a stack of institutional letterhead. I slapped Marcus's USB into my laptop, exported the 2-page summary to PDF, and in 4 delirious minutes hand-cranked 35 crisp copies. They smelled like elementary school quizzes and solvent, and the ink was damp enough to smear, but they existed. I tucked the warm bundle beneath my blazer and pelted up the stairwell, ghosting into the lecture. 10. The corridor outside theater. B buzzed with academic impatience, faculty members checking watches, graduate students murmuring about recent strikes, and AV tech tinkering with the projector. At the door, a harried Marcus stood alone, hair wildly uncombed, buttoning his collar. Without looking, relief crashed over his features when he spotted me. "You made it!" we said in unison, then both laughed, soft, frantic. He took the umbrella and the papers in the same breath, fingers brushing mine. They were ice cold. I re-alphabetized the bibliography, I whispered, and bolded the Hume quote. He mouthed thank you, but the chair of the colloquium, Professor DeWitt, was already ushering him forward, muttering about schedule integrity. As Marcus stepped onto the dais, he turned once, gave me a conspiratorial thumbs up, and launched into a courteous apology for the delay, citing a brief logistical weather anomaly. I slipped into a back row seat, heart still ricocheting like a pinball. Rain skewed across the tall windows, casting rippling shadows on the concrete walls. I finally noticed that my right sneaker was untied and my socks did not match. Marcus clicked to his opening slide, an 18th century woodcut of a philosopher balancing earth on a quill. He spoke without notes, voice steady, cadence rising and falling like the river's tide. How words shape moral horizons, how a single adjective in public policy can tilt budgets, sway consciences, redirect the future. Audience members leaned forward. Pens scratched. The handouts made their way down each row, giving off solvent perfume. Halfway through, he reached the section we'd polished in the Harbor and Hearth Café. The graph of headline frequency met the photo of flood displaced. Families we'd inserted at 2 a.m. A collective hush settled. I watched shoulders stiffen, watch bands pause mid-adjustment, a lecturer in tweed bite his lip. When the applause finally came, it shook dust from the acoustic baffles. Marcus's cheeks flushed the color of sunset on wet bricks. He answered questions with quiet precision, citing footnotes by memory. DeWitt declared it the most urgent talk of the semester. Aftermath in the rain. The hall emptied into the corridor's fluorescent glare. Marcus found me kneeling to retie my shoe, damp hair clinging to my forehead. You contradicted Hume better than Hume, I said, rising. You outran a storm on a suspension grate, he countered. He opened the silver-banded umbrella above us like a private tent. The rain outside had intensified, drops big enough to splinter on the pavement. But inside that small dome, everything was still. I owe you lunch, he declared, and 6 months of coffee. Start with a sandwich, I bargained. I skipped breakfast. We jogged down the steps, laughter pinwheeling around us with the rain. My cobalt umbrella waited by the foyer doors, dutifully dry, gleaming, as if proud. I grabbed it with my free hand. For the first time, the two umbrellas met handle to handle, a mirrored pair, silver on blue, tilting toward each other like punctuated quotation marks. Outside, puddles were already quilt stitching into shallow lakes. Marcus offered his umbrella. I refused, raising my cobalt canopy. Side by side, we plunged into the downpour, two domes bobbing down the quad toward the Student Union Café. I glanced at my watch. 10:26. Less than 2 hours ago, I'd been asleep, adrift in polar dreams. Now mud flecked my jeans, mimeograph. Ink painted my fingernails. Adrenaline still drummed my pulse. Yet the world felt crystalline, every raindrop a punctuation mark in a sentence the day had just begun writing. Marcus leaned close to be heard over the storm. "Isabella, remind me to ask Odell how you sweet-talked his mimeograph." "Only if you remind me to charge my phone tonight." "Deal. And after lunch? Maybe a victory stroll to the stamp shop?" "Your constellation set needs a companion." The suggestion made me laugh, a bright, echoing note that startled a cluster of sparrows from a nearby hedge. I realized suddenly that being late sometimes scrapes away hesitancy, revealing how swiftly two paths can splice when urgency lights the fuse. Umbrellas nodded agreement overhead. Behind us, Wyatt Hall receded into rain blur, the echo of applause, still lodged in its concrete ribs like a seashell hum. Ahead, steam curled from Café vents, and the sky, gray, boisterous, gloriously unpredictable, promised further misadventures for anyone foolish enough to chase them. I tightened my grip on both umbrellas and walked on, soaked sneakers squeaking, a smile spreading wider than the storm. Chapter 9. The True Eva. The rain that had pummeled Wyatt Hall all morning retreats at last, thinning into a gauzy drizzle that drifts across the quad like steam escaping a kettle. Marcus and I emerge from the Student Union Café, two victorious fugitives armed with grilled cheese sandwiches and an irrational sense that we can now outrun anything, including weather forecasts. My cobalt umbrella gutters in the breeze. Beside it, Marcus's silver-banded canopy snaps open with a practiced flick of his wrist. A pair of domes again. Shoulder to shoulder, we set off toward the river walkway, intent on nothing more ambitious than a detour to Meridian stamps and ephemera. Our shoes leave twin wakes in the shimmering puddles that quilt the flagstones. Campus. Bell towers toll 11:30. Their brazen clang still echoing Marcus's earlier applause. The air tastes of wet brick and fresh beginnings. Halfway across the quad, Marcus's phone buzzes, vibrating so violently he nearly drops his umbrella. He squints at the screen, then winces. "Text from my cousin Dylan," he mutters, "the one who arranged my ill-fated meeting with Eva last week." I arch an eyebrow. Eva? Mysterious colleague Eva? The one you never actually met? The very same. His thumb scrolls. Running late, change of venue, and... Wait. She's still expecting to meet you today at noon at Indigo Bistro. Marcus groans. I forgot Dylan rescheduled us. So go, I say, nudging him with the umbrellas. Tip. It's only half an hour. I'll kill time at the stamp shop. And abandon you again in a torrential plot twist? Never. Marcus, I spent the morning mimeographing moral agency handouts in a janitor's closet. I can occupy myself with plate blocks and postmarks. He hesitates, eyelashes freckled with drizzle, then sighs in surrender. All right, but we rendezvous at Meridian in 90 minutes, no later. Scout's honor. I offer a 3-finger salute. We part at the cloister arch. Marcus strides off toward the bridge, silver rings flashing. I veer toward the arcaded row of antiquarian shops, heart humming with the promise of inked perforations and miniature moons. Meridian stamps and ephemera. Meridian inhabits a narrow Georgian storefront, its bay windows fogged by years of kettle steam and ruminative collectors. Inside smells of newsprint, cedar drawers, and the faint metallic ghost of stamp hinges. An old ceiling fan whirs overhead, stirring dust motes that hover like plankton in amber light. Behind a glass counter, Mr. Rao, the proprietor, peers through, aloof as though the penny black before him carries state secrets. He greets me with the nod of a fellow archivist. Back so soon, Miss Hastings? Still hunting constellations? Today I'm after anything that gleams like possibility, I answer, shaking droplets from my umbrella and leaning it against a map chest. For an enraptured hour I sift through folios of commemoratives, Czech astronomers, Senegalese baobabs, Icelandic puffins mid-flight. I choose a 1961 Soviet issue celebrating Yuri Gagarin, blue on white, Earthrise mirrored in his visor, and a New Zealand miniature sheet of glowworm caves that glimmers phosphorescent under ultraviolet. Mr. Rao wraps them in glassine. I slip them into The Sailor Who Bottled Night for safekeeping. Outside, the drizzle downgrades to a shy mist. I check my watch. 12:18. Marcus's lunch should be well underway. I picture Indigo Bistro, white tablecloths, hanging ferns, waiters in waistcoats, and wonder how a philosopher explains a no-show, then a rain-drenched re-show, to the woman his cousin swears is the perfect intellectual match. A pang of curiosity nudges me toward the river. Umbrella aloft, I take the footpath lined with plane trees still dripping crystalline beads. Their leaves tremble in sudden gusts, releasing tiny silver cascades that sprinkle my shoulders. On the far bank, barges idle, ropes pulsing with the tide. A flock of black-headed gulls wheel overhead, crying like rusty hinges. At the walkways, Bend Indigo Bistro appears, a slender floating pavilion moored to the quay by lacquered gangways. Its glass walls glow amber, catching the river's shivered light. Patrons inside look like actors on an aquarium stage, all gestures and smiles distorted by refracted ripples. I peer through the glass in passing, not meaning to intrude. But what I glimpse through a gap in the condensation halts me mid-step. At a starched linen table near the window sits a woman with short, dark hair, a precise charcoal bob that frames brisk, alert eyes. Even seated, she is tall, her posture ramrod yet elegant, like a viola propped in its case. Draped over the back of her chair is an umbrella she clearly carried moments ago. Forest green cloth etched with silver vines. Recognition slams through. Me, the vine umbrella. The very one mistaken for my own. The relic I returned to the elderly widower. Impossible. Yet there it is, identical down to the scroll-carved ashwood handle. And opposite the woman, gesturing animatedly with an espresso spoon, sits Marcus. My impulse is to retreat. This is his appointment after all. But instinct overrules etiquette. I push through the bistro's glass door, the maître d' swiveling in mild alarm as a gust of orchard-scented air follows me in. I raise a palm, mouthing just a moment, and weave between tables until I stand at the edge of Marcus's. He looks up, half surprised, half relieved. "Isabella," he exclaims, rising. "You're early. Perfect timing." The woman turns as well, eyes sharp, assessing, and I notice the faintest constellation of freckles across her cheekbones, like ink dots on a sea chart. "Eva," Marcus says. "Allow me to introduce the co-conspirator who rescued my presentation this morning. Isabella Hastings. Meet Dr. Eva Marlowe." Dr. Eva Marlowe. The name snaps into place like a compass settling on north. This is the elusive colleague I was once mistaken for. Eva extends a hand, grip firm. "A pleasure," she says, voice low, resonant. She gestures to the empty fourth chair, the table set for 3. "Tea? We've only just ordered." I slide, in heart thrumming with intrigue, and with the electric déjà vu of the vine umbrella resting behind her. "I couldn't help noticing your umbrella," I begin cautiously. "It resembles one that crossed my path yesterday." Her lips quirk. "It's a distinctive pattern, isn't it? My grandmother's. Disappeared last week at Pemberton's Patisserie." Imagine my surprise when a kind gentleman returned it to her doorstep this morning. She tips her head toward Marcus. I blink at him. He shrugs, sheepish. "Odell the custodian recognized the elderly man from your story. Said he was an acquaintance. I had a break between office hours." Then, to Eva. "Turns out the mix-up began when Isabella and I swapped wrong umbrellas." A grin blooms across Eva's strict composure. So you're the cobalt night girl Dylan kept mentioning. She pours me oolong from a pewter pot. Marcus and I have been tracing errant umbrellas like cartographers following uncharted rivers. I'm starting to believe umbrellas have secret social lives, I admit. They go places we don't plan, nudge strangers into collisions. Eva's laugh is surprisingly unguarded. Then let's map the next detour. Conversations and connections. Over teacups and artichoke tartlets, the three of us weave a tapestry of near misses. Dylan's garbled calendar invites, the storm that drove Marcus to the market, my pastry detour, Eva's bonsai lecture that overran, the elderly widower's mistaken swap. Each thread aligns into a pattern so coincidental it feels choreographed. Eva's field, I learn, is Anthropocene legal anthropology. She drafts frameworks for resource-sharing treaties in climate-stressed regions. She and Marcus trade citations, with volleyball ease, filling the linen napkins' borders with references to Ostrom, Latour, and a centuries-old Greenlandic seal pelt accord. I, the scientist in the trio, spiral numbers around their philosophies, grounding abstractions in dissolved oxygen curves, time balloons, waiters clear plates, refill teapots, light the tiny hurricane lamp in the center of the table. Outside, clouds sluice westward, revealing a drench-washed sky of pale lapis. Sunlight bursts through like a revelation, scattering gold across the river below the window. And inside, perhaps because the story of the umbrellas has broken the usual shields, conversation slips into more delicate latitudes. Eva confides she once dreamed of becoming a concert cellist. Tendinitis ended that, so she shifted to the music of policy harmonies. Marcus admits he plagiarized himself at 14, rewriting a favorite novelist's paragraph for an essay because he wanted to feel, just once, what if brilliance were his own. I share how, at 10, I built a dam of sand and oyster shells on a family beach trip, only to weep when the tide collapsed it, the first lesson that water always gets the final word. There is a moment, quiet as dust motes, that circles. The table then settles, unspoken yet unanimous. How strange and exquisite to find kindred triangles in a city of strangers. Storm unwinds its thread. At 2:45. The maitre d' discreetly places the dessert menu, but we wave it off. Our banquet has been narrative. Eva glances at her watch, a sleek chronometer engraved with polar coordinates. I promised Dylan I'd present at his 3 p.m. seminar. She rises, slips into her charcoal trench, reaches for the vine umbrella. Allow me, Marcus says, but she is already twirling it open with a flourish that belies her formal demeanor. I stand too. Before you go, I fumble in my satchel, produce the glowworm miniature sheet. A token for the cartographer of umbrellas. Eva examines the stamps. Caves lit by bioluminescent threads. Glowworms, she smiles. Lanterns in the dark. She tucks the sheet into her notebook. Thank you, Isabella. Keep bottling your nights. Then to both of us. Next week, same bistro, same time. Dylan will survive without me. We'll bring new umbrellas, Marcus promises. She slips through the glass doors, the umbrella's silver vines catching sun like river reeds. On the quay she pauses, tilts the canopy toward us in farewell, then strides away, haloed by sudden brightness. Exhale a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Marcus turns, eyes shining with relief and something gentler. The true Eva, he says, echoing my unspoken thought. Not a myth after all. Alive and brandishing the very umbrella that started your cousin's matchmaking crusade. I grin. How does it feel to finally meet the legend? Considers. Like finding the missing chord in a melody you've been humming for days, but discovering the song's still being written. He pockets his hands. And the composer might be a trio, not a duet. Outside the clouds uncurl, to reveal shards of blue, the same cobalt shade that once sparked all this. Light skims mastheads, dazzles pavement, ricochets into the bistro until the walls glow. Come on, I say, nudging him with my umbrella's tip again. The stamp shop closes at 4, and I owe you a sheet of lunar eclipses. He laughs, open, unreserved, and follows me into the gilded afternoon. Our umbrellas remain folded for now. Above us, gulls ride thermals, feathers silvering in the sun. Below, the river mirrors everything upside down, as though reminding us that the world is always 2 stories at once, the one we walk and the one reflected back, shimmering, rearranged. We step onto the gangway, balance briefly between water and sky, and keep going, eager to discover what small current of chance will tug at us next. Confident now that when it does, we'll recognize its tug and follow. Chapter 10. A new friendship, golden afternoon spills across the river like liquid brass, glazing every rail, cobblestone, and rippling wake with late summer warmth. Marcus and I leave meridian stamps and ephemera carrying fresh treasures. He, I, centenary sheet of lunar eclipse minis. I, a battered envelope of pre-decimal Irish fauna, emerald ink still bright after half a century. Our umbrellas swing folded at our sides, harmless talismans now that the rain has fled eastward. Overhead, the sky yawns cloudless and generous, as though the storm were only a prologue. We let the current of pedestrians sweep us onto Willow Promenade, a sinuous path shaded by chestnut boughs heavy with candle-white blossoms. Bees drift between blooms. Children pedal wobbling bicycles. An elderly couple share a newspaper bench, arguing amiably about chess moves drawn in biro. Everything feels almost theatrically serene, as if the city itself has decided to grant us one still, luminous scene to seal the day. I glance at Marcus. Sunlight freckles through the leaves and sparks in the silver rings of his umbrella, painting stray bright coins along his sleeve. He catches my look and raises an eyebrow. Feeling triumphant, Isabella Hastings? Feeling rewired, I answer. Like the whole day was a circuit board and someone finally closed the last connection. Conductivity restored, he laughs. Shall we test the voltage with coffee? Only if it involves pastries the size of small appliances. We cross under an ivy-draped arch and emerge beside the copper kettle, a Riverside kiosk famous for cinnamon date swirls that resemble nautilus shells. The barista, a university dropout who now composes experimental jazz for espresso machines, waves us forward. He hands over 2 mugs and a paper tray stacked precariously high. We claim a wrought iron table on the floating deck. The river beneath sloshes in slow, thoughtful pulses, each surge rattling the hollow barrels that keep the decking afloat. Houseboats moored farther off Collegiate under the sun, windows flung wide, striped towels flapping like signal flags. A heron perches on a mooring post, neck drawn back in self-appointed majesty. For several minutes we do nothing but eat, sip, and watch the water wrinkle. Sugar dissolves on my tongue, coffee smoke curls up my sinuses, and the air holds the faint, electrical promise of summer thunder yet to come. Eventually, conversation resumes, gentle as the tide, turning not on umbrellas and cosmic coincidences, but on the quiet coordinates of everyday life. I learn that Marcus's attic room is so slanted he must crouch to open his wardrobe, that he keeps a battered edition of Moby Dick beside the bed for harpooning insomnia, that he once spent a winter volunteering at an Arctic seed bank and still dreams of the soft crackle of permafrost under boots. He learns my parents run a weather station on the Atlantic coast, feeding buoy data to satellites, that my first word allegedly was cloud. That one summer I mapped an estuary by kayak and returned sunburnt in the exact shape of a life vest. Against the low susurrus of water we trade fears too, his of forgetting to be astonished by the ordinary, mine of numbers losing their music, and turning into empty bureaucratic rows. It is strange, thrilling to speak those hidden scripts aloud and watch them drift, lighter, into the afternoon air. When the cups stand empty, Marcus draws the sailor who bottled night from my satchel. He asked to borrow it, just to feel the weight of a story resurrected from memory, and reads a paragraph at random. His voice is mellow, each sentence rising and falling with the confidence of a tied timetable. A small audience gathers, 2 teenagers sharing earbuds, a pensioner stroking a dachshund, the barista on break, held by the hypnotic image of a sailor snaring stars and corking them against loneliness. The deck creaks softly, rocking us like the ghost of an ocean swell. When he closes the book, applause flutters, a shy, spontaneous thing that scatters almost as soon as it starts. Marcus bows, cheeks coloring. I shake my head, half amused, half reverent. The pensioner presses a chocolate coin into my hand for the story, then totters off, dachshund in tow. A clock somewhere upstream strikes 4. Shadows lengthen, sliding like cool silk across the deck. We stand to leave, but neither of us steers toward goodbye. Instead, our footsteps aimlessly mirror each other along the quay until we reach Turnstone Bridge, the same narrow catwalk I sprinted across in the morning. Its metal grating glints under a slanted blaze of sun. Marcus pauses at the threshold. This bridge feels different without weather screaming on all sides, he muses. Everything feels different, I answer. Same places, new map. We venture out, umbrellas still tucked under arms. Halfway, across we stop. Below us the river splits around an old timber pier, eddies churning in miniature galaxies. I rest my elbows on the rail. He does too. Our shoulders almost touch. I keep thinking about the way today braided itself, he says, voice softer now. Stamps, umbrellas, late-run lectures, a lunch that turned into a symposium. It feels improbable. I consider the ribbon of current, forever dividing, forever joining again. Improbable, yes. But maybe friendship is just improbable things consenting to stay improbable together. He turns, studies my face as if the notion requires empirical confirmation, then smiles. Slow, sure, like dawn finding confidence. Then allow me to formalize the consent, he says, offering his hand not like a handshake, but like a bridge. Plank, palm up, steady. Shall we be improbable allies, co-authors in mischief, Field researchers in Serendipity? I lay my hand in his. Warm, deliberate clasp. Agreed, Dr. Bell. Term length. Indefinite. Terms and conditions. Snacks, umbrellas, radical curiosity. Signed. He squeezes once. I squeeze back. Something settles, clicks, like a lodestone aligning to true north beneath layers of restless silt. The sudden crack of a cricket ball on willow bat erupts from the university green. Cheers sail over the rooftops, skim the river, and break around us. The noise startles a flight of pigeons from the eaves. They wheel overhead in a swift, silvered spiral, wings catching late sun, turning the sky into a momentary kaleidoscope. Our clasped hands part, but the filament remains, invisible, tensile, humming with potential. We finish crossing the bridge and wander along the embankment, speaking now of mundane plans, library hours, shared playlists, whether the meteor shower next month will be visible from the science building roof. Each new topic weaves itself into the larger tapestry like an unapologetic thread of bright color. At a crossroads of plane tree shade and sunlit paving, we pause. My dorm route angles left. His attic lodges beyond the right-hand fountain. 4. The first time parting feels quietly acceptable, not like an ending but a comma. Same time Thursday? He asks. We promised Eva a reunion, and I promised pastries fabricated by small appliances, I remind him. Yes. Thursday. We swap umbrellas on impulse, he taking back the silver-banded veteran, I inheriting a neat black folding, spare of his, like chess players exchanging pieces just to see the board anew. He lifts my cobalt guardian in a farewell arc that catches the butterlight and scatters it like sparks. I hoist the black umbrella high in salute, a tiny improvised flag of trust. We walk away, steps in opposite rhythms yet curiously synchronized by memory of a shared morning dash. After 10 paces I glance back. He is doing the same. Our eyes meet, both of us grinning at the choreography. Then we turn the final corners and vanish from each other's direct line of sight, but not, so it feels, from the wider cartography that has begun, quite without permission, to map us together. Epilogue. Glimmer. That night, in my dorm window, the city glow pools against glass while I catalog the day's relics. Gagarin stamp, glowworm sheet, chocolate coin, the sailor book, now threaded with fresh margin notes in 2 hands. Outside, rain gathers in distant thunder, maybe readying a reprise, maybe only clearing its throat. I set the black umbrella by the door, label it Marcus, loan number 1 in sticky note pen, and wonder what improbable routes it will chart before it finds its way home. Then I open my notebook and write a final line beneath the day's sprawl of observations. Friendship is a river that begins wherever two small storms decide to share an umbrella. Ink dries, streetlights hum, and somewhere across town, in an attic, with enthusiastic roof leaks, a silver-ringed cobalt umbrella leans against a window, waiting for next Thursday's adventure, already dreaming perhaps of the next sweet drop of unexpected rain. Great work today! Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.